Today on the Winning with Shopify podcast, it's a pen and it's a pad of paper, but the way you've branded it is actually creating a behavioral change.
What do we do? How is it special? Without really being into marketing, I don't want to feel like I'm conning people into buying something that they don't need.
You go into analytics and it tells you what's happened, but not why.
To have that customer that would come in and look at something and be like, and put it down. That was, so horrifying.
Yeah. The finance director's like, I want to take you out for lunch. And I remember saying to him, is it a £2.5 million lunch? Our partners at Seguno have released a brand new app for Shopify, and it's called Shopify Connect for Canva. You can essentially look at all of your product images from Shopify directly in Canva and export them straight back. This can save you a lot of time. If you want to find out a bit more about this or go and find the app yourself, you can go to seguno.com/Canva. Enjoy. So Angie, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. One of my favorite podcasts in the whole wide world. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's so kind of you. I did say to Angie before we hit record, everyone, that she didn't need to say that. I'm very humbled to have you though, Angie. So you've joined our growth hub. We'll signpost that a little bit. You chat so much in the different channels. You come to all of our roundtables. So you've been such a great part of our community, and I'm so excited to have you on today. But for anyone that's not heard of you, Angie, or seen your face or isn't part of Growth Hub yet, I'm going to say yet because everyone should join. There's the plug. But if anyone's not met you before, Angie, tell us a bit about your background. Tell us about your business, just to give us a bit of context as to what we're talking about today.
Yeah. So hello, world. My name's Angie Chua, and I'm an artist and illustrator and the founder, heart and soul of Bobo Design Studio, where I design and create wanderlust and travel-inspired stationery that encourages and enables people to explore the world around them. And I also own a brick-and-mortar retail shop in Palm Springs, California, called Bobo Palm Springs, where we curate a selection of stationery goods from primarily women of color artists, queer artists, and imports from Japan, as well as obviously the stuff that I design and create.
Amazing. And what I love is you've got bricks and mortar, you've got online, you do a lot of the creation yourself. There's a clear target market. I'm looking forward to today. It feels like some really good stuff to go at, stuff that we often talk about on the show. And I don't want to put under too much pressure, Angie, but I am very excited to have this conversation. So really appreciate your time and thank you for coming on. Let's start off at the beginning and talk about brand. And obviously you guys, even some of the things you've just mentioned, there's quite a clear and compelling brand story, a brand positioning, something people can buy into that's so much more than, and I'm sure you've heard me, Angie, and other people have heard me say, marketplace sites, like just white background, there's loads of products and that's it. And it's about products. It's not about brand story and everything else. Both healthy ways to run a business. But how do you start to build some of that authenticity, that brand, that compelling story for customers to buy into?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for acknowledging, even that we have a strong brand presence and brand voice, because we do put a lot of time and effort into making sure that people know who we are. And I think a lot of that just comes from us taking the time to really know who our customer is. I think marketing 101 is, who is your target customer? If you yell free pizza in the town square, you're going to get all the weirdos. So we don't want that, especially as a commodity brand. You can buy a journal from any store for a fraction of the price of what we sell ours. So in order for us to, craft those messages and really attract our core audience, we have to know who they are. And so we spend a lot of time figuring out who our person is and how we want to talk to them. And, you said the word authenticity, which is one of those words, such a buzzword that people, I think, kind of start to lose meaning of what that is. And so, for us, I think the idea of authenticity isn't just about be relatable or, appear to be something that a mass audience will buy into. For us, it's really what is our brand voice? How do we talk and who are we talking to? My ideal customer is literally one person. I know everything about her. She is this amalgam of a lot of different people in my life. And, but every time I have a conversation about products or behind the scenes or anything, I'm literally just talking to this one person. And so my brand voice is really important. Our values and our ethos and having that be forward leading is so, so important, especially now with how people are consuming brands and how they interact with brands. And just, I think the most important thing is letting people see themselves in your product rather than telling them why your product is cool, because nobody wants to be told why they should buy something. They want to see themselves in it.
Yeah. And I do see it work both ways. And I think it does depend on the business, but I think for your business, absolutely, if you went to market and told people like, you have to get this product, it's amazing, that it's not your brand, and I don't think would suit your product. And certainly, I mean, some of the things you've mentioned about, like, women of color, people that are queer, and like all these different identifications, or kind of groups of people in society, I think you go against that by trying to tell people to conform. Like, it actually is the opposite of almost what the brand message you're trying to convey. I've got a really dry question for you compared to all that. We talked about some more fun stuff in a minute, but you
Yeah.
spoke about, like, you imagine this one person as your customer, and you try and talk to her. She is almost like a one-to-one conversation, and no one's ever described it like that. I've worked with thousands of brands. I've done hundreds of episodes, not thousands yet, but I've done hundreds of episodes of this. No one's described it like that before. How do you, like, in terms of actual, like, verbs, like talking to people, focus groups, how do you talk to your customers? How do you actually learn that stuff?
A lot of it has evolved over time. I think this idea of like who my person is, um, it's like art. Like it never ends. It just constantly changes. I have to revisit who my person is. A lot of that is getting feedback from people. A lot of is seeing what resonates on social. Although I don't recommend chasing likes or chasing virality. Like it's really easy to get lost. But really understanding what products work and what people share with me. I think, our flagship product is a travel journal, which is a very personal item. People, it's not like clothing where people put it on and then they go like, this is what I'm wearing and I'm going to post it all over the internet. People are writing about stories with their family. They're putting pictures of their kids, and they still want to share this with me. So I get to feel like I'm going on these adventures with them. And so in that regard, I think it's really like about, just that connection, and that connection gives me like a little bit more insight into who my person is.
I love that. And I just had this moment in my head of thinking, you like, all of that is incredible, but and please don't, it's the rude way, but you're selling them like a journal and a pen, like it's stationery. But I think what's amazing is how just something so simple. I mean, I'm holding a pen in my hand. We were joking as well. You won't be able to see because it won't focus, but I've got a Shopify pen. I didn't realize I've been using this for months, and it says Shopify on it. I just hadn't looked because the studio's dark. But you're taking like stationery, and it's actually enabling a life change that, from everything I'm in my mid 30s now, everything I've experienced, read about society and culture, journaling is such a healthy thing. When you exercise all the things that make you truly happy, it's like blessing people. What am I grateful for? All those things, when actually, again, it's like, it's a pen and it's a pad of paper. But the way you've branded it is actually creating a behavioral change. So the product is very simple and easy to understand, but you're talking much more about the behavioral change in someone's life, which is really powerful. Like, it's a really powerful thing to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to this idea of like if you build emotional resonance around the products that you create, and how it's going to like impact people's lives, like that's them seeing themselves in the product. Because I mentioned like we're a commodity brand. You can buy a journal and a pen anywhere for a fraction of the price. So like, what do we do? How is it special without like really being like into marketing? I don't want to feel like I'm conning people into buying something that they don't need. But I really want people to see, what's so special about what I've created, essentially like for myself. And that's where like having that one-to-one interaction with a friend, it's so easy to like hype each other up and get that person excited. And so I like to think of my whole audience as like that one person. And like any person, there's different versions of you. There's, the person I am at work is different than the person I'm at home. It's just different than the person I am with my family. So like, even though I'm having this one conversation with them, I try and meet this person where they are. And as a result, I attract all the right people. And I don't have to worry about attracting the wrong people, like the weirdos in the town square looking for free pizza. They're great. We love them, but they're not my customer, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess what's really interesting, a parallel that's popped into my mind actually is about how we do SEO for a site that's got lots of SKUs. So like a lot of products available. We try to almost like kind of cross-reference. Yeah, exactly. We try to like cross-reference actually like all the different verticals that you might use, and then get keyword data to support that to put into the strategy. So like, I probably used this example before on the show, so apologies if you've heard this before, like reboil the kettle, top up the tea. But we did one with a dress company years ago, and they had like thousands upon thousands of dresses. And we started asking kind of vertical questions, I would say, to get this kind of cross analysis of like, this dress, tell me about it. The color, the material, the size, the design, like maxi dress, cocktail dresses, etc. Like there's lots of designs. Then we get into like where you would wear this dress. There's like red carpet, there's prom, there's cocktail party, there's Great Gatsby has grown like mad over the last few years. Certainly in the UK, like there are so many 1920s Gatsby parties, and the women wear like the little headwear and
Yep.
men are wearing
That was
bow
my
ties.
wedding. We had a Gatsby wedding.
Oh, really? That is
Yeah.
so cool. But exactly my point is like you start to look at the verticals where I imagine there must have been part of you on day one going like, I want to sell stationery, like so SEO keyword, notepad, journal, pen. When you've probably evolved it a lot more now, like to where people are really looking into like, how do I journal about my family or family journaling? I haven't looked on your site in detail, but I imagine you must do quite a lot of content around those kind of things of like how to structure certain journals, which relates back to a good product that would support you with this. But it's trying to find all those other verticals, isn't it? Of how do people engage with product, shop product, etc.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's about like, and that I think speaks to like meeting people where they are. There's different levels of people who might want to partake in a journaling journey or stationary journey. There's really creative people. There's people who like to write. There's people who are scared to do that because they're worried that their penmanship isn't great or that they're not artistic. And like, how do we engage those people? And so, and then on top of that, there's the verticals of like activities. What are they into? We do a lot of travel themed stuff. There's people who love to road trip. There's people who love to fly around the world. There's people who love national parks and Disney adventures. So there's really like so many personalities that exist. And how do we tap into all of that is a constant, SEO and content strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you find, and it's quite an interesting question, I think, do you find that, sorry, that's bigging up my own question. What I mean is I'm interested in your answer to this.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's late on a Tuesday when we're recording this and my head is quite fuzzy today. But I think with that, do you find, or how much do you find that some people are like, you feel like they've gone like, what is journaling? And you're trying to explain to them why they should journal versus people that are already doing it and they want to sort of join your community, buy your products and use your products. Like, how many are you convincing this is a good idea versus people that already want it? You're going, this is a great option.
Oh gosh, that's a tough question. That's almost like a
Mm.
funnel question, especially with
Yeah.
our flagship product for e-commerce is a travel journal. So it's a little bit more education. So it's like guiding them through this process of this is what it is. They're intrigued to I can maybe see myself using this to like, oh my God, this changes my life. How do I want to incorporate this into my life? And then for our brick and mortar store, it's kind of like a different process. They're so much more impulse driven, and like you have to make that conversion on the spot. Especially like for us in particular, we're in a tourist town. We don't get a second opportunity with a lot of customers. And how do we bridge that gap from I'm curious or I'm impulsive and I'm going to buy it to like this is something that I want and I can see myself using for a really long time. And there's no secret sauce. It's really tricky to try and figure out what that is. But it's such a fun journey to be a part of, to see people kind of go from curiosity to like, I love this and I want to use it forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing I always find hilarious is like when you look at analytics data to try and answer some of these questions, you come up with a hypothesis going, if I knew how many people kind of want the product and we just need to convince them to buy our product and engage with us versus people that don't know if they want it yet. So we're going to convince them you do want it and this is the one you want. You go into analytics and it tells you what's happened, but not why. And that's always hence my very first question of like, how do you talk to your customers? What's that engagement actually like? Obviously you've got the physical store, which is almost like a bit of a wild card to get to play against just pure e-commerce players. Is you actually get to meet customers, don't you, face to face, and engage with them. Like, what brings you to? You mentioned you're in a specific type of town. What brings you to the town and have a conversation with them? I certainly like. I mean, I as everyone will know, who listens to the show. I love to talk. I love to chat to people. When I go, I bought a coffee yesterday lunchtime. I went to the gym, bought a coffee next door, and she said to me, she said, do you come in here often? I said, oh no, I've walked past this place 1,000 times. I've never been in, but you've got a sign that says best coffee in Reigate. And the Reigate's the town near where I live. And I said, I thought I better test this coffee. And she goes, that's interesting. And I said, is it working for your marketing? And next thing you know, we're talking about marketing. So you must have a bit more engagement than you obviously would if it was purely online. You must find that super useful, having the physical store and that face-to-face connection.
Yeah, real-time feedback is great. It's also sometimes painful. I remember the first time I had a brick and mortar, that retail store was only stuff that I designed and created. And before I was pivoted to stationery, I did a lot of handcrafted items. And as an illustrator, I did a lot of my own graphic apparel. And to have that customer that would come in and like look at something and be like, and like put it down, like that was, so
Yeah.
horrifying, but in retrospect was so helpful. Like where else could you get that kind of real-time feedback? Not that, every artist, designer, or business owner should make decisions based on initial feedback that way, but there's something so valuable about seeing people react to your products. And in the slog of the day to day of running a business, which is really difficult, really lonely, really stressful, having that real time feedback and seeing people react reminds you why you get up every day. Like for me, I could have just the worst day and I see someone get so excited about something that they picked up in my store. And I'm like, that's why I do this. That's why I do this.
You are literally describing my wife now. We go into a shop and she picks something up and I go, that's kind of cute. I look around and her eyes are tearing. And I'm like, okay, let's go to the till. And she goes, really? Are we sure? I'm like, yeah, it's like £2. Like, we'll just go and buy it. It's fine. And she's like, for me? And I'm like, it's just because she's had that emotional attachment.
Yes.
And then she
Yes.
asked me a few years ago, like, why don't I get that? And I was like, no, I do. Just different things. Like sometimes whenever it's time to change the car, months. She hates it. I made a slideshow last time. Honey, we're buying this Audi because it's the best. It's a plug-in hybrid. I can charge it. And I thought about every aspect. The seats are amazing. And she was like, and where do we get one from? And I was like, the nearest one is a 4-hour drive away. And she's like, I'm not driving 4 hours. I was like, do you trust me? And she's like, go and get it. Go on, off you go. I went and bought it. But it's like that was me going like, oh my gosh, cars. What do I want next? What color? And I get excited about just different things. But I think that emotional connection, and you say absolutely right. It's you can kind of see in the data online of someone like looked at this product, bounced off. What you can't see is them kind of going like, oh, that's nice, picking it up. Oh, I don't like the texture, put it back down. You're like, that's way more interesting than just seeing a bounce rate. And so I love that you do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
It obviously with online, there's so much data, so you kind of have to make assumptions, but there's enough data for you to make a good assumption. You have a much smaller set with a brick and mortar, a much smaller sample size, and so you're trying to make decisions based off sales data, based off of how the movement of certain products, and then try and make assumptions about how do you grow a product selection based off of some of that criteria. So it's all data. It's just how it's presented is completely different.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And obviously, you didn't always have online and store. Like, talk us through that process. Like, which one did you start with? And obviously, you mentioned the first store just had your personal designs and stuff in it. Like, talk us through that process. Like, some of the mistakes you made, some of the things that were really successful that led you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I started online. Well, I'm an artist and a maker. So if you go back far enough, like in 2008, I was, selling at little markets and pop-up events. So, whether or not you consider that physical, but it's very much like a hyper local thing, just to build some trust and sell to friends and things like that. But I would say like the real start was really pivoting to online and getting into more of a larger mass market and diving into ads. But e-commerce has been, the bread and butter of our business. And so when I had the opportunity to open a store here in Palm Springs, which is 2 hours from LA, we're like in the middle of the desert. It's a great tourist town, seasonal, but there are so many challenges because one, in the summer here, it can be 125 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like what 51 degrees Celsius. So like there's
That's
nobody in
hot.
town. Yeah,
Mm.
it's pretty bad. So like the challenges, just come from them being completely two different businesses. We sell the same things online and in store, two totally different businesses from an operations level, like the overhead, managing the inventory, labor, how we market it, totally different businesses. But some of like the less obvious things are just like the people aspect, the customers. Like we talked about like how do you convert them in a much shorter window? You have like one shot. How do you connect products to people that have just wandered in? As we're online, they have to like seek you out, or they've been served enough of your content to really know who you are and to build that trust. We don't have any trust the minute that someone walks in that door for the first time. But I think kind of the other challenge was actually our aesthetics. Like the aesthetics of our online store at the time was a little bit like earthy and like really travel centric. Palm Springs is sort of this mid-century modern, like bright and colorful place. Everything is pink and bright orange and, very different aesthetics. And so like, how do I bridge that gap? That was really challenging. Um, but we've done it, and it's been great. I think it's helped both aspects of the business, both our online store presence and having the offline to help get people to our online store.
Yeah. And I think you're right. It's so different. We often talk so much in the online world about how do we make the online experience like the offline experience. But I think the grass is always greener. If you look at the online, like the offline world, going, oh, online it's easy. You got no overheads. You don't have to pay all these different taxes. Like you don't have to maintain a store, get the windows cleaned regularly, like open the shop in the morning, and all this kind of stuff. It swings and roundabouts, though, isn't it? Like we have all our own challenges online compared to the offline
Yes.
world. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I have, brick and mortar folks that say like, "Oh, it must be really easy to run an online. You just haven't like people," or like, "I built an online store. Like, how come no one's shopping?" And it's like, you can't, if you build it, people won't come. And for a long time, when we had the brick and mortar store, the cost of overhead, the labor, the inventory, the property, like we were robbing Peter to pay Paul. Our online store with our profit margins, having it mostly, pretty much our products that we designed in house, was carrying the cost of running the brick and mortar. But the cost to run online is so expensive between, all the fees, paid ad spend, any vendors, contractors, retainer fees. Shipping is so expensive now, and the Amazonification of everything, where people want things faster and cheaper. It's like the brick and mortar store, is now almost having to offset the costs of the online store and the warehouse. And so it's really interesting to see. And I think a lot of people don't understand how difficult it is to run two, or to make the switch from one to the other. It's really not a one-to-one at all.
Yeah. And we talk to a lot of businesses, and some of them that are doing like lots of physical face-to-face sales in their stores, they then come to us and say, look, we've got all these sales on our website, but it's not even the same as one of our 100 stores or whatever. And then when we look at it, we're like, okay, in the data, it looks like most people they know how to get to your website because they've seen your store before, or they're searching for your brand on Google because they've seen your store before. I won't say who, but more than one major retailer, one in the US, one in the UK, they were just riding this wave. And we actually, like, one of them in particular, we said, like, turn your advertising spend off, millions per year. They turned it off, no difference in sales. Sales remained flat. They didn't drop at all. And yeah, I don't know if anyone got fired at the end of it, but I look like a hero. Especially the finance director, like, I want to take you out for lunch. And I remember saying to him, is it a £2.5 million lunch? And he said, no. I said, how hard do I need to work for a £2.5 million lunch? He said, make me 25 million. You can have a £2.5 million. I was like, challenge accepted.
Well, saving a dollar is the same as earning
Yeah.
a dollar, if you ask me. So
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's two ways to look at all this stuff: is how much can we save, how much can we invest in the right things. Do you ever find that in your warehouse you have dead stock? You can't sell it, no one wants to buy it, and you can't get a refund on it. Or alternatively, you're missing inventory in your warehouse that you need. You've got sales coming in and you're low on stock and you haven't ordered more stock in time. All these things hit profit, and I've been there. I've run my own Shopify store and had exactly that problem. But we've partnered it up with Inventory Planner, who have the most incredible app to help you manage that and forecast exactly what products, what SKUs, even down to what color of product you need to order in advance to make sure stock levels remain consistent throughout. They're also running a 7-day boot camp. And if you want to go and sign up to that, it's 7 emails over 7 days. And it takes the same amount of time as your morning coffee. And in 7 days, like me, you can become an inventory management pro. Both links are in the description. Enjoy. I think with the physical stores, though, there are definitely things that every time I go into a physical shop that really hits me. You know, you talk about that kind of emotional relevance. When something is emotionally relevant to me, I start buzzing with ideas going, all of our online, online shops we work with at Spec, we need to do this, do this, do this. We need to improve these things. I also listen to quite a lot of guys that talk about like psychological solutions to real world problems, like particularly things like, okay, we don't have enough buses going between this town and this town. Let's get more buses. And then some smart ass looks at it and goes, we don't need more buses. Half of them are empty at these hours of the day. Let's just make those tickets cheaper and advertise it. And now they're full during those hours, and the ones during the day have always got a spare seat or two. We now have more customers across the same fleet of buses. Like, it's genius. Like, those kind of those kind of solutions. But I think when you're stuck just in the online world, and a lot of you guys listening are obviously listening because we're talking about Shopify a lot, and Angie is using Shopify, we're pleased to hear. But because we talk about Shopify a lot, we don't think too much about some of the kind of left field solutions to stuff, And I've written loads of these myself. Every blog post you read says like, here's how to increase your conversion rate by 50% overnight. And we did have one last year. We doubled their conversion rate overnight by changing 2 words on the page. We'll talk about
Yeah,
that
I
another
remember that
time.
episode.
Yeah, fascinating. We haven't had them on the show yet. I know you guys listen though, because that's how you reached out to us. But yeah, we are trying to get a case study about that at the moment. We've got a conversation in a couple of weeks to get that off the ground, which would be brilliant. I'll certainly share it with everybody. But thank you so much for sharing that, because I love what you were saying, Angie, about like just it's so difficult, and actually one business like carried the other for a while as well. I think a lot of people that just have physical stores think online's easy and let's just start a store and people come buy from us, and that'll only get you that trickle of 5 or 10% of people that go, I wonder if they have a website, and it's like no one's told them to do that. But what would you say is one of the biggest issues in trying to get your two businesses to integrate? You mentioned obviously they run different inventory. Have you like completely separated them now, or do you use the physical store for online content? Do you use the online store to drive people to the physical store? Like, how do you see that crossover? Or are you very much just like you can shop at either, you decide, and let people kind of sit in one or other community?
Yeah, that's also something we're always trying to figure out. If we've mastered that, we might be too big to talk to you. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'd be far too busy. It's gosh, that's a hard one to answer, mainly because what we do for the store is it is a little bit different. We've had to merge the two together, and I mentioned that was such a big struggle. The aesthetics, the brand voice is relatively similar, just because it's me and I think about my target customer. But then that target customer was sort of the guiding light about how do I bridge these two, right? Does my customer come to Palm Springs? Like, to a certain degree, yes. So let's just think about like the values of my brand. For me, like for the people who can see this on YouTube, if it's going to be on YouTube, is I'm an Asian woman. There's not a lot of Asian women talking about travel themed discussions and being in the outdoor space, especially here in the States. So I really wanted to give like my perspective and my voice. So I liked the idea of like, how do I carry that into a brick and mortar shop? Like, okay, great. Let's carry women of color artists and queer artist products and let their voices and their products and the cool things that they make kind of be front and center. So really taking the aspects of the core and ethos of the brand and like building that into the brick and mortar space. And what that essentially does is, again, it removes me as being a commodity. So we've built such a great community around the ethos of our brand, and the visual aspects and kind of the engagement level that you get in the store, the experience that you get in the store, that if another stationery store opened in town, like that would suck and it would be a competition, but I would never actually have to worry about it because no one could really replicate what we do, because we've really doubled down on that personality, that voice, and our person, and merging the two together. So I try and stick to that as much as possible.
Yeah, that's really cool actually, because online, like competitors just pop up like one a day.
Oh
It's
yes.
carnage.
And people have
And
so much
certainly,
money. It's like we don't have the ads budget to just compete at that level.
yeah, absolutely. And we talk so much with our clients, and it sounds like you guys have built a good brand of this anyway, but just about what happens post sale. Like, how do you get that second, that third, that fourth order? It's in terms of economics, guys. The cost to get a new customer in is always infinitely more than getting an existing customer to buy again. So if you're still like over 50% reliant on new customer traffic and people just buy once, then you have the biggest problem on your hands. I guess as much as I love marketing and we're really good at it, we cannot predict the future, and there will be icebergs that your business is going to hit at some point, and it's going to survive that collision much, much better if actually you've got such a big email database of people, not even just email one thing, but you just keep revolving those people. So how do you guys approach that? How do you keep people engaged? How do you keep them talking, thinking about you? And most importantly, like, that's all great, but let's not beat around the bush. Like, you've got to buy products. If you don't buy products, we have no money. We can't do this anymore. Like, how do you approach that lifetime value, that community drive, that second, third order?
Yeah. Well, from a technical standpoint, email. obviously, like, it's the only place where you own your customer. I think here in the States, as of a couple days ago, like, there was the whole implosion of TikTok, and
Yep.
people lost their entire businesses
Yeah.
overnight. I think it's coming back. I haven't been paying close attention in the last few days,
Yeah,
but
and just to cut in, Angie, sorry, I never cut across guests, but just to add on that, guys, we are going to do an episode on it. I'm just waiting for all this, and I don't use this word very often. I'm waiting for this to calm down, right? I don't swear that much at all, but
yes,
when the comes down, we'll do an episode and
yeah.
we'll highlight opportunity stuff. So sorry to cut across, Angie, but I
No,
just thought
no,
I'd
no,
add that
no.
quickly.
I
Yeah, yeah,
mean, it's wild times, as I like to say, that we are living in, very wild times. But it's just such the kind of implosion of that is like the biggest reminder of, like, you need to build a connection with your customer off of a platform that you do not own. So newsletters are so important for us, and it's a way that we, like, communicate with our folks, but it's never, we have a percentage of our stuff where we're promoting product because that's what, essentially people want, but I think, the education, the behind the scenes, we talked a little bit earlier about, like, this idea of, like, authenticity and what that looks like. I think pre-COVID, the idea of, if you were a brand, you were sort of faceless. You were about product, you were about a vibe, and, like, let's sell this. That was the mark of a successful brand. Um, don't talk about yourself. Don't show behind the scenes. Like, that seems like kind of a DIY-ish kind of a thing, right? COVID completely changed that. I think Amazonification of buying has changed that. People now want to know, who are they buying from. They want to see the messy bits. They want to see the behind the scenes. They want to know why you created something, and they want to support that with their dollars. They're voting with their dollars in essence. And so that's something that we really, really hone in on and focus on, and we use our email very much to convey that message.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I guess even with email, I don't want to scare you today, Angie, but even email, like we've had businesses before for no fault of their own. Someone has like targeted them and got their domain banned with like Google Outlook, so people didn't receive their emails. And there's a road. I think you were on one of our roundtables a few weeks ago where we spoke about this. I can't remember if you came along or not with Seguno, but we spoke about this a bit and how to improve that sentiment so more of your emails get through the spam bots. So I think there's also part of like diversifying. So even if that happened, the reassuring thing for you and others who are doing this really effectively is you've still got your social channels. You've also got everyone's addresses, some of their phone numbers. There are other ways of contacting these guys to say, like, this is what we're doing. And it's honestly, it's one of the reasons why we didn't create a Facebook group, why we didn't make a WhatsApp channel, why we've gone down the road with Winning with Shopify of building an actual platform. And a couple of the guys in the platform have been really vocal. You know who you are. Robert, you are one of them. I know you listen to the podcast, who said, like, this just doesn't work for me. Can't we just have a WhatsApp group or something? No, because we can't control that. And we're trying to future proof this thing for like the next 50 years. We don't think Shopify is going anywhere. So I think having those other channels as well, which in terms of your view, Angie, it must come down to everything from like the packaging we use, the leaflets we put in products. Like, we have to build the brand connection where they will just come back at some point.
Yes, every aspect. And we talk about that with our staff too. Like, why is it important that you do these things? And every touch point that we have with the customer, I like to call it concierge level service, even if it's online or if it's in person, is really making them feel as special as possible, and talking to them like a human being and not like a brand. That's so vital to kind of the core of who we are.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think I saw some stats the other day, and I can't remember the exact numbers, guys. I read so many reports. I'm so sorry about this, but it was dramatically higher when the email had been signed off by somebody, rather than it just being a like, many thanks, cool brand. Like, so if you say like, many thanks, Stephen, or we saw one thing the other day actually in a report where there's a case study we read, and in this case study report, it spoke about how this company had diversified their whole segmentation of email by going, right, we're going to come up with 10 personas. These are 10 real people who are in our customer service team, and we're going to segment our email by those 10 segmentations now. And whichever flow, whichever email newsletter they receive, each of those 10 will be tagged with one of our 10 customer service reps, and it will be signed off by them. And the first thing we're going to do is email just the first 10% from one person and see what kind of engagement we get. Say, hey, I'm Joe. I'm your new customer service rep here. If you're looking at any products, if you buy anything, have any issues, please email me. And it actually comes from joe@theirbrand.com. And I thought, this is so smart. A, it's a real person. B, it's like, wow, I've got an account manager at this brand. All right, great. I'm thinking of buying this soon. What could you do for me? And customer service were like, I just dropped my pen. But customer service were completely swamped. But the advantage of this is now like people were engaging with them, and customer service were doing what customer service should be doing, which is like, I'm trying to buy a new t-shirt. Do you have one that's made of this material? Because I bought one 6 months ago and it's really itchy. Customer service, like, send the itchy one back, full refund. Yeah, you should buy one of these if you struggle with eczema or anything else that actually is making you itchy. Plus, we also have a moisturizer, which works really well, and people have said it works really well. We're going to launch that. Would you be interested in it if we launched it, having a free one and telling us how good it is? Yeah, of course I would. Great. We've got a VIP customer for life, and all it took was 2 or 3 emails backwards and forwards and a free moisturizer. Like, it's
That's
pretty simple stuff.
that's the girl equivalent of like, hey, I really like your skirt. And they reply, it has pockets, get it from here. It's just this idea of like, give them a little bit more and get them a little bit more excited. And they're sold. So,
or in my case, my friend turns up in a new car and goes, my car does this. I'm like, where can I get that?
Where
Who
I
sold
need
it
that.
to you?
Yes. Give me a name, give me a card. But yeah, no, I think the other important like aspect to that is, oh shoot, it's like now leaving my head. You said something that was really cool, and I'm like, oh,
sorry.
yeah, it's okay,
Sorry.
it's gone. I am like car, shiny car.
Yes.
No, I completely. Oh, I remember what it was. But to what you were saying, I think the moment that I knew that our communication was working was when I started getting replies to our emails, to our news blasts, written directly to me. And I think it's because, all of our emails were signed off for me. And I don't know anyone that like gets people that writes personal letters to their newsletter inbox. So that was really cool.
Yeah, no, very good. We had Stephen from Keep Candles, spelled Keap, on years ago, and I've had a lot of guests on, and some of them have slipped my mind, but Stephen's always stayed with me. He's partly because he was British and he was living in the US, and I was like, come on, let's do this for Britain. But he said that certainly in the early days, and he still does it quite a lot now, is he was manually, one by one, replying to customers, like building that connection, because he was like, I need to get this thing off the ground, and if replying to every single customer personally and saying, I thank you so much for buying our product. It's going to arrive tomorrow morning. I hope you love it. Please do leave me a review. Like, it's still a really new business. We'd love your support. And also you can have 15% of your next product. Just let me know what it is and I'll get that sent out to you so that they reply. And he said like a good percentage of those people in that first year he emailed are still their VIP customers now. So he's now embedded that into their customer service model. And I think it's such a powerful thing having someone talk to you. And like you mentioned earlier about how things have changed and the Amazonification, is it?
Amazonification, yeah.
And Amazonification. I love that word. So Amazonification of society, which means like, okay, I'm just talking to the robots. Everything's a system, which I think consumers then start to look at and go, what can I get out of this as much as possible? Which for a business owner is a nightmare. That means people are going to try and get lowest price as much as possible, complain until it's free. Like, these are all bad outcomes for a business owner. And they're not going to help your P&L. So I think having that connection is super, super important. So last question before we come into land then, Angie. Apart from telling us how to get hold of you, that will be the last question. But second to last question, where are you guys heading? Like, what do you see in 2025 that is a big thing? Like, without spilling the secret sauce, what is on the horizon that you guys are planning, wanting to try this year, stuff you've not done before?
Yeah, 2025, we're 21 days in at this point of this recording, and it is very hard to tell what things are going to look like, especially here in the US. And there is nothing worse than trying to plan for something that is, unprecedented. Everything is so unprecedented. But I think I've done a lot of work into thinking of like, what's our 2-year execution, 3-year, 5-year. And this year, we're really just about horse blinders on, staying really focused, and running things as efficiently as we can. Because if there's anything that we know, it's that small business can be gone tomorrow for whatever reason. Our social channels could disappear. We could make a mistake in our email. Our town could just stop getting traffic. So we're really just constantly thinking about, how do we stay as efficient as possible? How do we continue to serve our people so when they need something, we're there for them, and really staying hyper focused on staying true to what we're currently doing and what works. Not doing a ton of testing at this point in time, but I think for us, like wholesale has been a channel we've always neglected. So we're really doubling down on wholesale and really trying to reach having the retail store has been really great. It gives us a lot of insight as to what works well in a retail store. So now we're really focused on that. And it's going to be a very exciting growth opportunity for us.
Nice. And I think all businesses reach the point of, I use this word loosely, but like maturity, where you're kind of like, right, we've got a good thing going on now. We need to both continue to grow this thing, not be scared to take the odd risk, but we also need to be a bit more risk averse in going, how do we protect what we've got? And yeah, I've certainly been through that phase myself. And the beautiful thing on the other side of this phase, if anyone else is going through this at the moment or heading towards this point, the beautiful thing I find is you sleep so much better at night when you've got a bit more of a security plan under your belt. Like, I know society tells you today to like live loose and buy a super yacht, but couldn't be further from the truth, I think. And actually, like, having some good cash reserves to go, right, your town closes or they relay the road and it takes 6 months outside the store, you've lost everyone. Like, no one's coming to you anymore. 6 competitors open over the road. No one's having cash in the bank and that's happened. That's fine. We're resilient to that. We've now got 6 months of cash to see us through. But I think the fact you've got a physical and online store as well gives you a bit of an advantage in that space.
Yeah, it's about the diversification.
Yeah, absolutely. We spoke to one brand actually earlier today before recording this who make their own product, and they basically do wholesale into lots of little retailers, a lot of which I said to them, they're actually smaller than you. So they're buying like tiny quantities of your product plus loads of other people's products. They're smaller than you are in terms of turnover and trade. And the problem is you've just moaned to me that they keep just disappearing and closing down. And like, you need to assess, I'm not in wholesale, but just looking at the baseline numbers, you need to assess your wholesale strategy and change it. Like, they could all disappear next month. And that actually shouldn't surprise you if it happens. What you need to do really is go, let's get a few more big flagship 50-year long retailers that are not going to disappear overnight and own more of our direct customers. Like, that's a way of diversification. Those are new markets to go in. There are people who are not buying your product that could be buying your product. So I think a lot of the things you said resonate, I think, and it sounds like quite an exciting plan. So I say this to quite a few of our guests, and Byron's looking through the archives at the moment as well. For anyone who never heard of Byron runs the show. I just get to sit here and have all the fun. Byron organises Angie to come on and does gets all the editing done, etc. But Byron's looking through the archives at the moment as well, going, we had these guys on a year ago or 2 years ago. Let's get them back on and see where they're up to. Do a bit of a rewind, like remind us where we were 2 years ago. Where are we now? So we'd probably get you on again in a year, Angie, and we can see if any of the things you've just said of, it's like running a business. They wake up tomorrow with an idea, or as you say, social media platforms disappeared, and it's like you got to keep evolving. But yeah, very exciting. Amazing. Well, Angie, thank you so much. I said there'll be one more question. How can people find you? Like, what's the website URL? What are your social handles for platforms that still exist? How can people reach out and see what you guys are up to?
Yeah, so we're bobodesignstudio.com, and that's Bobo Design Studio across all socials, including YouTube, where we do a lot of tutorial videos, and I share a lot of our personal journals, and it's a really fun, exciting place. And Bobo Palm Springs, our Instagram handle is Bobo Palm Springs for the store. Super fun. We have a lot of really cool installations in our shop, so we like to share a lot of those and the fun humor from all the brands that we carry. But we would love to be friends on the internets and come and seek us out.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Angie. And if you're nearby, do check the store out. I've never been there, but Angie's been in the store a couple of times when we've spoken to her, and just seeing the background looks incredible. Certainly
It's
compared
a
to a
fun
lot of
place.
the pure online e-com players that we talk to normally. So yeah, it certainly looks like a really fun place. So cool. Thank you so much, Angie. Really appreciate your time. For everybody listening at home, thank you for tuning in again. This week, we post every Friday. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Thanks to Angie and a few others. We've just hit 1,000 subs on YouTube, literally in the last few days. And a big shout out to Tara, because she followed us on 6 different accounts. I shouldn't say it, but we're over the 1,000 limit on the 1,000 threshold now on YouTube. So definitely check out our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave us a review. Check out the Growth Hub. It's under the community drop down on our website as well. Thanks for tuning in. Back again next Friday. Our partners at Seguno have released a brand new app for Shopify, and it's called Shopify Connect for Canva. You can essentially look at all of your product images from Shopify directly in Canva and export them straight back. This can save you a lot of time. If you want to find out a bit more about this or go and find the app yourself, you can go to seguno.com/Canva. Enjoy.